The Denver Broncos are finding out that there is a downside to being a playoff team. But before we talk about that, guys, I want to thank the affiliate partner for today's video, Green Gridiron Helmets. Use code DENSYN, DENSYN, link in the description below to save off your first purchase on authentic NFL helmets. From small replicas like this one to full-size authentic helmets. Again, that is code DENSYN to save off your first purchase from Green Gridiron Helmets. Thank you so much to them, and now back to your regularly scheduled content. Although the Denver Broncos are set to make their first playoff appearance since 2015, and it is overall happy vibes here in Denver, there is some rough news that has come in Dove Valley over the last couple of days, and that is the Broncos could potentially be losing multiple members of their staff to head coaching jobs. I want to go ahead and bring in this tweet from Zach Stevens of DNVR. Multiple Broncos staff members have received head coaching interview requests. Vance Joseph has received an interview request with the Jets, and David Shaw has received an interview request with the Bears. Vance Joseph has already completed his interview with the Jets, and as far as Vance Joseph is concerned, I would be more than happy letting him go if it were for a head coaching position. If some team came and tried to poach him as their defensive coordinator, the Broncos would have every right to decline and block that move. But blocking a potential promotion is kind of a Bush League move, and I don't see the Broncos doing that. So if Vance Joseph has the opportunity to be a head coach somewhere, then I do believe the Broncos will let him pursue that opportunity. And the New York Jets, I gotta be honest, man, that does not seem like a good landing spot for VJ. They're a dysfunctional organization. When Vance Joseph was the head coach here in Denver, they were a dysfunctional organization with John Elway and Joe Ellis leading the charge, and it just was an overall mess. And I'm worried that if VJ were to go to the Jets, it would be a very similar situation. As far as David Shaw is concerned, he's the former Stanford head coach, and he's been on the Broncos staff this year, actually up in the front office as a senior personnel executive. But I do believe that David Shaw is valued in the NFL. I just don't think that he's going to be hired as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. They are looking for somebody like a Ben Johnson or some really sexy hire like that. So I'm not as worried about losing David Shaw, but we could be looking at losing Vance Joseph here. And I do know the Broncos have a succession plan in place with Jim Leonhard already on staff in the event that they lose VJ, but I don't want to lose VJ, man. This defense is really starting to play some of their best football heading into this year, and next year, once they address some of the remaining personnel issues that they have, especially at the linebacker position, I believe this defense could take that next step forward, and changing play callers could change that dynamic enough to where the growth would be stalled a little bit. I still think that Jim Leonhard has a bright future and is a future defensive coordinator in the NFL, and I do believe that if Vance Joseph does eventually leave, Leonhard will come in, but for VJ, he's got a lot of options that he needs to evaluate here. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. He's got a pretty good thing going here in Denver right now. He's basically the head coach of the defense, and he's getting paid pretty handsomely. And the Broncos have deep pockets, so they could incentivize Vance Joseph to stay if they were to maybe bump up his salary a little bit. VJ also has maintained a home here in Colorado even after he left the Broncos the first time around, so clearly he has some appreciation for this community. He went to college up at Boulder, so he is very familiar with this area, and I do believe that VJ has a lot of incentives to stay in Denver. There is another name to keep an eye on, though, in terms of somebody the Broncos might lose, and that is Davis Webb. Bringing in this tweet from Tom Rock, who covers the Giants and the Jets for Newsday Sports, if the Giants wind up being in the market for a new offensive coordinator, should they move on from Mike Kafka, their current offensive coordinator, one name to watch might be old pal Davis Webb, who was actually drafted by the New York Giants back in 2017. The job he's done with Bo Nix in Denver has been impressive, and we see one guy here said it would be like hiring Bieniemy, and I actually commented back on this guy, and I said, trust me, as somebody who covers the Broncos, Davis has been huge for Bo's development, and the Broncos are very high on him, which is true. The Broncos are extremely high on Davis Webb, and Bo Nix will tell you that Webb has played a huge part in his development in terms of helping him grow with some of his fundamentals and his technique, so on and so forth, and he's just a good leader and sounding board to have in the quarterback room. I think that the Broncos actually covet Davis Webb so much that they might be willing to move Joe Lombardi to a different title, maybe a senior offensive assistant, similar to a current role that they have Pete Carmichael in, and then maybe they would promote Davis Webb to offensive coordinator. I could very easily see that happening if the Broncos are afraid of losing Davis Webb, but I know that they wouldn't let him, or they wouldn't prevent him from going to another opportunity if that opportunity was for an offensive coordinator spot, especially if it's one where he could call plays. Sean Payton's not giving up the play calling duties here in Denver, so that is one scenario where they might let Davis Webb go, but otherwise, I think that the Broncos might do whatever they can to keep him here in the building. So those are the guys that I'm really worried about losing this offseason, are Davis Webb and potentially Vance Joseph. Hopefully both of those guys decide that they've got a good thing going and they're building something special here in Denver, very much like Ben Johnson did last year with Detroit, and now Johnson's probably going to get a head coaching job this cycle. Maybe Vance Joseph and Davis Webb might be willing to push their promotions back a little bit, and maybe the Broncos might be willing to make some moves to keep both of those guys in the building. I'm curious, Broncos country, how would you guys feel if the Broncos were to lose either Vance Joseph or Davis Webb to potential promotions on other teams? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support, helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And before we get out of here, guys, I want to tell you about the other affiliate partner for today's video, Whitebeard Signworks. Use code BS30, link in the description down below, to save $30 off your first purchase on NFL LED team logo signs, just like this really cool sign behind me. Again, that is code BS30 to save off your first purchase from Whitebeard Signworks. Thank you so much to them, and until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.